Hey guys, Alex here. Today we're going to be changing the transmission fluid on the Jeep. I'm getting some help today from a friend of mine, Kilobyte, from Kilobyte DIY. That's his channel here on YouTube. He's got some great videos. He's a Mazda guy, got lots of videos on Mazda Miata. If you like Miatas, go check it out. So he's going to be helping me today. Before we get started, just want to tell you what we're going to be using and needing today. In order to change the transmission fluid on the Jeep. Now this is a 2016 Jeep. The JK generation of Jeep. So what you're going to need is you're going to need two hex bit sockets. One of them is a 14 and the other is a 17. They're humongous. So I went to Harbor Freight here in town where I live and I bought those. You're also going to need about 2 quarts of transmission fluid. So we've got 2 quarts here. I've got the Pennzoil Synchro Mesh. Make sure that you buy the correct kind that is compatible with the Jeep. Before I went and bought this, I looked on a lot of the forums and there was some debates on what was good, what wasn't, what was appropriate. But the Pennzoil Synchro Mesh is on the bottle. It says it's compatible with Mopar Chrysler vehicles, so that's what we're going to be using today. Now there are some difficulties that we're going to have to work around in doing this, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Let's go ahead and jump under the Jeep. All right, you guys, so we're laying on the right side of the Jeep looking at the transmission, and immediately you can already see the fill hole for where the transmission fluid is going to go, and that is where the 14 size hex bit is going to go, and it fits perfectly. There's no problem getting to it, super easy. However, the drain hole, if we slide up in here a little bit farther, is right here, and that is where the 17 has to fit. Now this is where the problems and the difficulties arise, because the exhaust pipe is in the way so that we can't actually fit the 17 up in there. So what we're going to try to do is modify this socket and take out the actual head and get rid of the socket piece to see if we can fit it up in there and use a wrench to turn that. So let's see what happens. So we're here in the garage working on getting this piece out, and we've actually already gotten it out, but I wanted to show you what we did. So on this hex socket, the hex piece is really just seated down in there really tightly. And so what we did, like I said, we already got it out. What we did was we took it upside down and set it in the vise, and we used a large bolt, basically anything that would fit down in this hole, and beat it with a hammer until the hex came out. And it wasn't that difficult. We had to hit it a few times, but you can see where it wore on here, but it was not that difficult. Now, obviously doing this, we just set the socket just on top. We didn't really tighten it down because you have to be able to let this fall out. So it has to be able to fall through. So that's what we did. Put the bolt down in there and beat it with a hammer, and it fell out. So hopefully this will fit up above that exhaust pipe now into the drain hole, and we can turn this with a wrench. So let's go find out. Here we are back under the Jeep, and we're going to see if our little hex bolt without a socket fits, and it does with clearance. So that's great. So what we're going to do is use a ratcheting monkey wrench and take that off. Now, a couple things about that. Number one, of course, you want a drain bucket so you don't get it everywhere. And a couple other things. You want to have driven the vehicle. You want your fluid to be warm, because if you haven't driven the vehicle, if it's just been sitting for a while, any contaminants or debris may possibly have fallen to the bottom and just have settled there. So what driving the vehicle does is it will hopefully have moved all that around. Also, warming up the fluid will help it to flow nicer. So just a tip, drive your vehicle a little bit before you try and do this. One other thing, before we take off the drain plug, you actually want to take off the fill plug first, because if you take off the drain plug, empty your fluid, and then find that you just can't seem to get the fill plug out, then you're up a creek without a paddle, because now your transmission is empty, so you can't drive anywhere, but you can't get the plug off to fill it back up. So we're going to take off the fill plug first, just make sure that we can get that out, and then we will take the drain plug out and drain the fluid. Now, being up under here, this is very difficult to video, so we are probably just going to go ahead and take those off and start draining, and then we'll pick the video back up and just show all that happening. But as far as taking these off, just wrench them off. All right. Very quickly before we do this, I wanted to also show that we have also wrapped the exhaust pipe in tinfoil, because when we open up this drain plug, it's going to drain directly onto that pipe, unfortunately. So we've wrapped the exhaust pipe in tinfoil just to keep that from happening, so that we don't get the oil on the pipe. Because if we got oil on the pipe, then when we started the vehicle, it would burn all that oil residue left on the pipe and would start smoking. So just to prevent that, we just wrapped some tinfoil around the pipe to keep the oil from getting on there. And then when we're done, we'll just take that off. So we're gonna go ahead and drain that fluid. All right, you guys, so we've taken that drain plug out and we've drained out the fluid, and this is the plug. And you can see lots of metal pieces. It almost looks like it's crystallized. Metal pieces left on this drain plug. Now, this is probably the first time that this Jeep has had its transmission fluid changed. And being the first time, this is fairly normal to have this much debris coming out. Just from the fact that having never been changed after the manufacturing of the transmission, you know, just, I guess you could say, rough edges of the gears and things from the manufacturing will have smoothed out over time being used. But if you're on the second or third or consecutive times changing the fluid and you still get this, that's a problem. That means your transmission's wearing out, your gears are grinding, and synchros are wearing, all that stuff. So if it's the first time, don't be alarmed, but after that, you might have some issues. So we're going to clean this plug back up and put it back in, and then we'll put in the new fluid. So before I put the drain plug back in, I just wanted to show it to you guys all clean. I wiped it up, cleaned it off, and it's looking nice and spiffy now. We've gotten rid of all that metal and gunk buildup and residue right here on top, so it's nice and clean and ready to go back in. We did use some isopropyl 91% alcohol just to kind of clean up the threads as well. Because these plugs do not have a washer to go back in there and keep it nice and sealed, you do want to use either Teflon tape or some sort of compound to seal it nice and tight before you put in the new stuff. And so we use that alcohol to clean off or try to clean off some of the residue from what was left where someone had used some Teflon tape before on that. And here's the fill plug. Just kind of cleaned off the threads on that as well. But the drain plug is looking nice and clean now, so that's ready to go back in, and we will start filling up the transmission with the new fluid. All right, you guys, so we put the drain plug back in, and now we're about to put our fluid into the transmission. And when you get these bottles, there's a little cap that comes on top, just like so, and pull that off, and then it's sealed up here. So we have taken a razor blade on this first one and just cut off that top piece, just right there. And some guys just pick this up and shove it up in there and squirt it in. But knowing myself, I would probably not do very well. So we just have a little pipe that we're going to shove down on top and then wrap some tape around just to give me a little bit more room to maneuver. Definitely do want to make sure that this does not go in the transmission though. So we're gonna put some duct tape around here just to make sure it stays stuck. And this will give me a little bit more wiggle room when I'm trying to put it in there. Once again, because of the awkward angle under the vehicle, probably not gonna be able to film actually squeezing this in, but that's all we're gonna do. We're just gonna put this into that fill hole and just squeeze the bottle. Once we run out, we'll start on the second one. I don't think that it's gonna take all 2 quarts. I think it's like 1.6 or something. So basically we're just gonna squirt until the fluid starts coming back out the hole. That's how we're gonna know that it's full, because there's really no other way to tell. So we're gonna go ahead and do that, and we'll see you on the other side. So it looks like we found a way where we can hopefully get this on camera using 3 hands. So here we go. And there goes the fluid. Get to the end. So we have filled it back up. We've got, of course, we had to put the drain plug back in before we filled it. And we just now went ahead and tightened back on the fill plug. And you can also see the white stuff around the edges of both of them where that compound was that we used to help seal it. Got them nice and snug. Don't want to over tighten them, but definitely want them snug. I had taken off the aluminum foil before filling it back up, which was a mistake. I should have left it on there, because now I've got all kinds of wonderful fluid on there that'll burn off on my way back to the house. So not a big deal, but should have thought about that before I filled it up. But oh well, you live and learn. So go ahead and got that back in, and we're gonna start it up and see how she runs. Hey you guys, we're pretty much all finished up now putting that fluid in the Jeep. I'm gonna take it out and drive it around and then pull it back in just to make sure that there's nothing leaking once everything gets moving around in there. But other than that, we're done for this video. It's good to hang out with Kilobyte from Kilobyte DIY. Don't forget to check the comments below, or the caption below, for a link to his page. He's got some good videos. Other than that, thanks for hanging out with us. Stay tuned for our next video, and until then, take care. In this video today, we're going to be changing the transmission fluid on the Jeep. We're here at nope. This is why you think about what you're gonna say first. Okay. Hey you guys, this is Alex here. In this video, we're gonna be changing the transmission fluid on the Jeep. Today I'm getting some help from a friend of mine, Kilobyte from Kilobyte DIY. He's got some great videos. He's got a all right, here we go again, take number 3.
I do the same thing.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is why you write it down first. But I don't do that. This is why that one install on the S-Tech took me 8 hours.